You clicked because you saw a date, the 3rd of June, 2026, and a warning that something is coming for your pension. You were right to click, because what changes around that date isn't the real story. The real story is what's already been happening to your money quietly every single fortnight for years. Here's what I know. There are retirees in this country losing thousands of dollars a year off their age pension for one reason. Not because they don't qualify, because they filled in one number wrong on a form and nobody ever told them. I spent a long time close to this system. I saw how the numbers move. And I'm going to show you exactly how to find that money before the 3rd of June, 2026. This works whether you retired last week or 15 years ago. I still remember sitting across a laminate desk from an old fella in a Centrelink office years back, watching him hand over a sheet that quietly cost him his full pension. He had no idea. Most people never do. So let me start with something simple, because the simple things are where the money hides. When you applied for the age pension, or when you last updated your details, Services Australia asked you to list your assets, your bank accounts, your car, your shares, and your household contents and personal effects. That last one sounds harmless. Furniture, the telly, jewelry, the tools in the shed. Most people give it about 3 seconds of thought. And that's where the trouble starts. Because I watched person after person write down a number that was completely wrong. They'd think about what it would cost to replace everything. The lounge suite, the fridge, the good dinner set, mom's rings. They'd add it up in their head and write down 20,000, 30,000, sometimes more. That number is not what Centrelink actually wants. And the gap between what they wrote and what they should have written is real pension dollars gone every fortnight. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because to understand why one number on a form matters so much, you have to understand how the whole machine works. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The age pension in this country runs on 2 tests, the income test and the assets test. Services Australia works out your pension under both, and then they pay you whichever one gives you the lower amount. Read that again. Whichever one gives you the lower amount. The system is built from the ground up to land on the smaller check. Let me give you the figures, because the figures are everything here. As of the most recent rates, a single homeowner can have up to about $314,000 in assessable assets and still get the full pension. After that, every extra bit of assets you hold reduces your pension. The cutoff, where your pension drops to zero, sits around $695,000 for a single homeowner and just over $1 million for a couple. Now here's the part nobody explains properly. For every $1,000 of assets you hold above that lower threshold, your pension drops by $3 a fortnight. $3 per thousand per fortnight. That works out to $7.80 a year for every single $1,000 Centrelink thinks you own. So follow this with me. If you overstated your household contents by, say, $15,000, and you're in that zone where the assets test is biting, you could be handing back over $100 a year. For furniture, you don't even have it that value. For a number you guessed in 3 seconds, that's not a rounding error. That's a quiet leak. And I'll come back to plugging it, because the way you fix it is almost insultingly easy. And look, if you're finding this useful and you want the full picture laid out in one place, I've put everything I know into a book called The Pension Blueprint, part of the Complete Senior Money Field Edition. It covers the assets test, deeming, the cards, the schemes, all of it, step by step, so you don't have to piece it together from a dozen different government pages. It's at the link in the description. And at $97, it costs less than a single fortnight's worth of pension. Most people are quietly handing back. If you want to go deeper after this video, that's where you go. Now, I promised you this applies whether you retired last week or 15 years ago. But first, I need you to understand something about why this happens, because it isn't an accident. Here's the truth I came to understand from the inside. The system is not designed to help you get the most you're entitled to. It's designed to pay you the correct amount according to the rules. And the rules are written in a language most people never learn. Nobody at the counter is going to lean across and say, mate, you've overvalued your contents, let me help you get more. That's not their job. Their job is to process the number you gave them. So who benefits when you get high and lose pension? The budget does. Every dollar of pension not paid out is a dollar saved by the Commonwealth. There are billions of dollars in unclaimed and underclaimed entitlements sitting in this country right now, and a good chunk of it comes down to ordinary people filling in forms they were never taught how to fill in. I'm not telling you this to make you angry, though you've earned the right to be. I'm telling you because once you understand the machine, you can work it the way it was always meant to be worked. Legally, correctly, in your favor for once. Let me show you what household contents are actually supposed to be valued at. This is straight from how Centrelink assesses it, and almost nobody knows it. Your personal effects and household contents are not valued at replacement cost. They are valued at what you could actually sell them for today. Secondhand, garage sale value, fire sale value. Think about that. Your lounge suite cost you $4,000 new. What would you actually get for it at a garage sale this Saturday? $200? Maybe less? Your fridge, your washing machine, your beds, your old telly, the dining table? Walk through your house and imagine selling the whole lot to a stranger this weekend for cash. That number, the real number, is almost always somewhere between $5,000 and $15,000 for an entire household. Not 30, not 50. I've seen people drop their declared contents from 30,000 to 8,000 with one honest phone call, and every thousand they dropped, if they were in the assets test zone, came back as real pension. So here's the first thing you can do this week, and you do not need an advisor, an accountant, or a single dollar to do it. Walk through your home. Look at your furniture and goods with the cold eye of a secondhand buyer. Write down the garage sale value room by room. Be honest, but be realistic. Then ring Services Australia or jump on your MyGov account and update your household contents figure to that real number. If you'd overstated it, your pension can go up, and it can be backdated in some cases from when you report it. That's it. That's the whole trick. Most people will never hear it, and this is where it gets bigger. Household contents is just one number on a form full of numbers. And if they got that one wrong, what else did they get wrong? Because the same misunderstanding runs right through the assets test. And the next one is worth a lot more than your lounge suite. Let me tell you about your car and your caravan and your boat, if you've got one. People list these too. And again, they write down what they think it's worth, often from memory, often from what they paid, often rounded up because they're being careful and honest. But a car loses value the second it leaves the dealership, and it keeps losing it every year. That 15-year-old Falcon in the driveway that you valued at $8,000 because that's roughly what you paid for it ages ago might be worth $3,000 on a good day now. That's $5,000 of phantom assets dragging your pension down. The rule is the same as the contents. Market value, what you'd actually get if you sold it today. Not sentimental value, not what it cost, what a buyer would hand you cash for right now. Go and check it against the actual secondhand market and update it if it's high. Now you might be thinking, these are small numbers, what does it really matter? So let me stack them up for you, because the system relies on you thinking each one is too small to bother with. Overstated contents by 15,000, overstated the car by 5,000, maybe a caravan you barely use, overstated by another 10. That's $30,000 of assets that don't really exist at those values. In the assets test zone, $30,000 is around $234 a year in lost pension. Year after year after year, over a 10-year retirement, that's well over $2,000 handed back for nothing. And the cruelest part, nobody will ever ring you to tell you. The figure just sits there, quietly costing you, until the day you finally update it, or until you watch a bloke like me explain it. Therefore, if a few wrong numbers can cost you that much, imagine what's happening with the parts of the system that are genuinely hidden, not just misunderstood. Because now we get to the engine room, we get to deeming. This one I want you to really listen to because it affects nearly every single person drawing a pension in this country. And it's the part the least number of people actually understand. When Centrelink assesses your income, they don't look at the actual interest your bank is paying you. They don't care that your savings account is paying you almost nothing. Instead, they use something called deeming. They assume your financial assets earn a certain rate of return, whether they actually do or not, and they count that assumed income against your pension under the income test. Here are the deeming rates. The first chunk of your financial assets is deemed to earn a lower rate, and everything above a threshold is deemed to earn a higher rate. For a single person, the lower rate applies up to around $62,600, and the higher rate kicks in above that. These rates were frozen at unusually low levels for several years to protect pensioners, and that freeze is exactly the kind of thing that gets reviewed and changed around dates like the one in the title of this video. Now here's why deeming matters so much, and why it's a trap for the unwary. Deeming applies to your financial assets, your bank accounts, your term deposits, your shares, your managed funds, your account-based pension from your super, but it does not apply to everything you own. And the line between what gets deemed and what doesn't is where a lot of quiet money lives. Here's the insider angle. Because deeming is an assumption, it can work against you when your money is sitting in low return cash being deemed to earn more than it really does. The system is assuming you're earning income you're not actually getting and reducing your pension based on that imaginary income. You're being penalized for money you never received. So what do you do with that? You make sure every dollar you hold is working at least as hard as the rate it's being deemed at. If your money is being deemed to earn a certain rate, but it's sitting in an account paying you almost nothing, you're losing on both ends. You get the low real return and the pension reduction. Moving that money somewhere it actually earns the deemed rate or better means at least you're getting the income the government already assumes you're getting. That's not investment advice. And I'm not telling you to chase risk. I'm telling you to stop leaving money in a spot where it's punished twice. That alone is something you can look at this week by checking what rate your cash is actually earning against what it's being deemed to earn. But here's the bigger tension, and it's the one that should make you sit up. If the government can simply decide what your money is assumed to earn and change that assumption whenever they like, then the rules of your retirement aren't fixed. They move. And they tend to move at the start of a financial year or on announced dates, which brings us right back to why a date matters at all. And I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, this is all very well for people still sorting themselves out, but I'm already retired. The pension's already set. The horse is bolted. It's too late for me. I want to talk to you directly for a minute, because that belief is the single most expensive thing you own. It is worth more to the system than your car and your contents combined, because as long as you believe it's too late, you'll never pick up the phone. And everything I've just told you only works if you do. So let me be very clear. Every figure on your Centrelink record can be updated today by you. The contents value, the car value, the bank balances, all of it. The assets test isn't carved in stone the day you retire. It's reassessed every time your circumstances change and every time you report. People who've been retired 10 years update their details and watch their pension rise because they'd been carrying phantom assets the whole time and never knew they were allowed to fix it. And here's one specifically for those of you already drawing a pension and feeling stuck. It's called the work bonus, and it is one of the most underused entitlements I know of. The work bonus lets pensioners earn money from work without it reducing their pension the way ordinary income would. The first $300 a fortnight of employment income is not counted under the income test. And here's the part almost nobody knows. If you don't use it, it banks. It accumulates in a work bonus balance that can build up to a maximum of $11,800. There was even a one-off boost that started everyone's bank off with a credit. Why does that matter to someone who's already retired and not working? Because it means if you do a bit of casual work, some seasonal hours, a few shifts helping out somewhere, a little bit of consulting from your old trade, that income can be almost completely shielded by your accumulated work bonus. You can earn thousands across a year and have the income test barely touch your pension. Retired doesn't have to mean every dollar you earn gets clawed back. The system just never made that obvious. Because a pensioner who thinks earning is pointless is a cheaper pensioner. There's another one for the already retired crowd, and it's about your home. The home you live in is not counted as an asset for the pension. Not $1 of it. You could be sitting in a house worth $1 million and it's completely exempt from the assets test. That's the rule. Now here's where people accidentally hurt themselves. Some folks, worried about money, sell the family home to free up cash, and the moment they do, that exempt asset turns into assessable money in the bank, deemed and counted, and their pension drops. They solved the cash problem and created a pension problem they never saw coming. If you need to access the value tied up in your home, but you don't want to lose your pension, there's a government scheme most people have never heard of. It used to be called the Pension Loan Scheme. It's now the Home Equity Access Scheme, run by Services Australia itself. It lets eligible older Australians borrow against their home equity and receive it as regular payments or a lump sum at an interest rate set by the government that has historically been well below what the banks charge for the same thing. You stay in your home, you access the value, and done properly, it doesn't slam your pension the way selling up would. I'm not saying it's right for everyone. Debt against your home is a serious thing, and you should understand it fully. But the point is, it exists. It's run by the government, and almost nobody at retirement age has ever had it explained to them. That's the pattern. The tools exist. The explanations don't. Therefore, if the government runs a scheme to lend you your own home equity cheaply and runs a bonus to protect your earnings and assesses your contents at garage sale value, you have to ask the obvious question. Why does it feel like every one of these things is something you had to stumble onto rather than something you were told? Here's my honest answer. From years of watching it work. None of these things are secret in the legal sense. They're all published. They're all in the rules. You could find every one of them if you knew the exact words to search for and had the patience to read Social Security legislation on a Sunday afternoon. The suppression isn't a locked vault. It's something quieter and far more effective. It's complexity. It's a system so dense, so full of thresholds and tapers and tests that an ordinary person gives up and just accepts whatever number lands in their account. The fine print isn't hidden. It's just exhausting. And exhaustion is the cheapest security guard the system ever hired. Which brings me to the one I've been saving, because everything I've told you so far helps you fix what's already on your record. This last one is about money you might be entitled to that you've never claimed at all, and it hinges on a card most people throw in the too hard basket. It's called the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, and I want you to pay close attention because the rules on this changed in a way that opened the door for a huge number of people who'd been told or assumed they'd never qualify. For years, this card was for pensioners and people on very modest incomes, and a lot of self-funded retirees, people who'd saved hard and didn't get the age pension, assumed it had nothing to do with them. They were too well off for the pension, so surely too well off for a senior's card. That's what they figured, and they were wrong. The Commonwealth Seniors Health Card is not means tested on your assets at all. There's no assets test. It's tested only on your income, and specifically on a measure that includes your taxable income and the deemed income from your account-based pensions. And in late 2022, the income thresholds for this card were lifted substantially. The threshold for a single person rose to around $90,000 a year, and for couples to around $144,000 combined. Let that sink in. You can be a single retiree with a paid-off home, a healthy chunk of super, no age pension at all, an income approaching $90,000 a year, and still qualify for this card. Hundreds of thousands of older Australians became eligible the day those thresholds moved, and a massive number of them have never applied because they still believe the old story that it's only for the hard up. So what does the card actually get you? It's not loose change. It gives you cheaper prescription medicines under the pharmaceutical benefit scheme, which for anyone in ongoing health conditions can be the difference of hundreds, even over $1,000 a year. It gives you access to bulk billed doctor visits where doctors offer it, and a lower threshold on the Medicare safety net, so you hit the point where the government covers more of your medical costs sooner. And depending on your state and the time, it can unlock concessions on electricity, gas, council rates, car registration, and public transport. Add that up for a couple managing a few medications each, running a household, registering a car, paying council rates. You are easily looking at well over $1,000 a year in real savings, sometimes several thousand, for a card that costs nothing to hold and is sitting there waiting to be claimed. Here is the hero's journey of this thing, and it's the whole story of this video in one example. The entitlement existed. The thresholds were lifted by an act of government and published in the rules, but the message that reached ordinary retirees never updated. People kept living by the old limits, self-selecting out, assuming the door was shut when it had quietly been thrown wide open. Nobody profits from telling a comfortable retiree they qualify for cheaper medicine. So nobody did. And now you know. So this week, alongside fixing your contents value and checking your car and your deemed cash, I want you to look up the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card income thresholds and check your income against them. If you're under the limit and you don't have it, you apply through Services Australia and you start clawing back money on every script you fill and every concession your state offers. You don't need an advisor. You need 20 minutes and the willingness to stop believing it's not for you. That belief that it's not for me, it's too late for me, I wouldn't qualify, I'd only be disappointed. That's the real thief. Not one rule, not one date, not one department. The quiet, settled belief that the system has already decided your number and there's nothing you can do. I watched that belief cost honest people real money for years, while the figure sat there fixable the whole time. So here's what I want you to walk away holding tonight. The money was never gone. It was just sitting behind a number you guessed, a card you didn't claim, a rate you didn't check, and a story you were told about who these things are for. Every single one of those is something you can change yourself this week for free. You're the kind of person who worked your whole life and paid in and played it straight, and you're never going to be the type to just shrug and accept whatever lands in the account. That's why you're still here at the end of this. People who give up don't make it this far. So do something for me. Go and look at the household contents figure on your Centrelink record and tell me in the comments what number is sitting there right now and whether it's anywhere near a real garage sale value. I read these and other people read them too, and your honesty might be the nudge that saves someone else thousands. Tell me where in Australia you're watching from while you're at it. And if you've had enough of being quietly milked by a system that profits from your silence, subscribe and stand with the rest of us who are taking back what was always ours. Because next time, I'm going to show you the one super withdrawal mistake that can wipe out your pension for an entire year and the exact order you should draw your money to stop it from ever happening. You do not want to miss that one. I'll see you there.